I sued social services 5 years ago, and today I'm going to explain how I did it and how you can attempt to do it as well. This is a video I have put off making for so long. I've received so many DMs asking me how I did this, so I thought I would finally make this video. I've put off making this video because it is really hard to talk about, but I love it when you guys tell me that I've helped you, so I just want to feel like I'm helping people. So make sure to share this. This is going to be kind of a long video, maybe 2 parts, but I'm going to say it bluntly and I mean this in the nicest way possible. If you can't handle me explaining how I did it and what you should do instead, you won't be able to handle the process of suing social services because it's very difficult and they make it difficult. So I'm going to start by quickly giving you a background on why I sued social services. I left a violent relationship when I was 21. This man did end up in prison for it. My daughter was 4 years old at the time, and social services were notified of the situation by the police because I was still technically a care leaver. So social services tried to get involved, and I explained to them that I've left the relationship. I've kept my daughter safe by leaving. We moved house over it. This guy does not know where I live. I've kept her safe. I've done what I've had to do. Social services agreed and they disappeared. But them getting involved in the first place, because I don't just mean it was a situation of they got notified and then they checked in on me. They started writing reports. They started saying I needed to start attending appointments. They started to threaten to put my child on a child in need plan. And for the first time, I found my voice and I was like, no. If you want to do that, take me to court. They didn't because they couldn't and they disappeared. But it left me feeling so angry because I realised it triggered me back to, I've explained in one of my story times before that my daughter was at one point put on a child in need plan because I fainted on the street. And they said I'd put my daughter at risk because I fainted. So when they disappeared after I explained, I've kept my child safe, I was just left so angry and it triggered me. It made me think of all the other involvement they'd had. And not just with my daughter, but also with me. I can't explain how much it triggered me. I started to get PTSD flashbacks. Social services first got involved with my family when I was 7. I wasn't put into foster care until I was 15. And this was after I'd been homeless for nearly a year. So I decided I wanted to write a complaint about the situation and the way they dealt with my daughter, but also me. I decided I'm not just going to complain that they tried to get involved with my daughter again. I'm going to complain about everything. And I did. So the first step that I had to do, and bear with me, right now I'm explaining my process on how I sued social services. There are things that I want you guys to do differently because I went in blind. There's so much I would do differently. I have some regrets. So hear me out on how I did it, and then I promise you I will go into what you should do differently to have a chance at being more successful. The first thing I did was a stage 1 complaint. You can find out how to do this on your local authority's website, or you can ring Citizens Advice, or you can let your social worker or personal advisor know that you want to make a stage 1 complaint. This is where they get you. They will always have a statutory time limit to reply to certain complaints. If they say to you that they will respond within 6 to 12 weeks, please believe it will be 12 weeks. They make the process as long as possible, and I'll go into why, if you can't already guess. I made 7 complaints. I wasn't out. The first one was that I became homeless at 14. Social services were aware and left me on the street. My second complaint was that my foster care placements were poor and social services didn't help me get back into education, and I wasn't provided basic things like a clothing allowance. My third complaint was about Baby Stealer. If you don't know about Baby Stealer, comment and I will tag you in the baby stealing saga. You don't want to miss that one. And I complained that she was still allowed to be a foster carer after she stole my baby. I just can't say it seriously. My fourth complaint was that I wasn't supported as a care leaver. I never met my PA, ever. Whenever I asked for help, she was always on annual leave. She was always busy. I'd then get a new PA. So I was saying the support and the things I was entitled to as a care leaver was inadequate. My 6th complaint was about my daughter and how they got involved for no reason. And my 7th complaint I'll go into in a minute because it's not quite relevant yet. So I made all those complaints. The stage 1 complaint, the response, the way social services responded, they literally sent me a letter. It was a paragraph long, if that, saying, oh, we can't explain why all that happened. Maybe you should read your foster care records to figure it out. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that is what they said. We don't know. Read your foster care records and you'll find out. Do you understand? If you want to know why we left you on the street, if you want to know why we let a foster carer steal your baby, why she was allowed to continue, if you want to know why we put you with a drug addict foster carer, just read your records. And I was like, that's crazy. Nope, I'm not accepting that. I then contacted the local government ombudsman, LGO for short. The LGO are who you contact if you don't believe a local authority has dealt with your complaint well enough. And it doesn't just have to be social services, it can be any complaint towards a local authority, but obviously this was social services. That was a very long process. You contact them, they ring you, they do their investigation. If they agree with you that the local authority didn't take your complaint seriously enough, they will write to the local authority and demand that they deal with it properly, which is exactly what they did. The caseworker who was assigned to my case, she was amazing. She was so amazing. She'd always call me to see how I was. She always kept in touch with email, always gave me updates, and she wrote to the local authority and said, you haven't dealt with this properly, do a stage 2 complaint. And that's what we did. The stage 2 complaint changed my life. Because when it goes to a stage 2 complaint, independent people deal with it. It is not the social services department for your borough. No social worker, no manager, they are completely independent, which also means they're very unbiased. They looked at my complaints, they then contacted my local authority and said, yep, we're going to be dealing with this, hand over her foster care files. Bear with me, part 2 will be up today. This is part 2 of how I sued social services and how you can as well. Watch part 1 for more context. So I will give you the short version of the stage 2 investigation. I did mention in my last video that there was a 7th complaint I made, and that complaint was about how the local authority didn't deal with my stage 1 complaint. The complaint I made about them getting involved with my daughter when they didn't need to, that went to different investigators because they decided that would be under children's social services, whereas my complaints, even though they were about when I was a child, because I was now an adult, that would be an adult social services issue. So it was 6 complaints the stage 2 investigators were dealing with. And their job was to read my files and to see how accurate my complaints were. So when I said, baby stealer stole my baby, they were looking at, did she really? And how did social services deal with that? And they told me that once their investigation was done, they would give me a report that said whether my complaints were upheld or not upheld. The baby stealing complaint was inconclusive. It was inconclusive because social services didn't write enough notes about what happened that day. All that was in my files about that particular incident was the phone call I had made to the social worker saying that Sandra, nearly said her real name then, Sandra was refusing to give my daughter back, which I thought was evidence enough, but apparently that was inconclusive. Bear in mind at this point, I didn't have my files. I have my files now, I'm always reading from them, but I didn't actually have my files at this point, so I had no idea what information was in there, what these investigators would find. My other 5 complaints were all upheld. Every single one of them. You know in Good Will Hunting... See, I'm going to get emotional. This is why I avoided making this video, because it does make me emotional. You know in Good Will Hunting, right at the end, where Robin Williams is telling Matt Damon it's not his fault, getting this 28-page report, having 5 of the complaints upheld, that was my it's not your fault moment. Because for a long time I'd blamed myself. Things that happened to me in care, the reasons why I ended up in care, like I blamed myself for so much. And so to have these investigators, these non-biased people telling me that it wasn't my fault and that intervention should have happened sooner, and no, my foster carers didn't sound like very nice people, and no, they could see that I really wanted to go to school and social services didn't help me, like yeah, that was my it's not your fault moment. That changed my life. While all this was going on, I was ringing solicitors and I didn't deal with it properly, and in my next part, I know it's really long, I know I have so many parts and it's really annoying, but like I said, to be blunt, if you cannot handle hearing me talking about it, you will not be able to go through this process, because I need to tell you, from when I made that first stage 1 complaint to the outcome of the stage 2 complaint, it was about a year. With the local government ombudsman all in between, it was about a year. Like I said, social services, if they have a deadline, they'll do it as late as possible. This stage 2 investigation, they also wrote a letter to the local authority saying how shocked they were that my foster care records were given to them in the wrong order. And that really held up the investigation, because the investigators had to put all my files in the right order to be able to understand it. They said that multiple files were missing, which to this day they still haven't seen. And they wrote a whole separate letter, a separate addendum, saying that they should go through all their files, all the kids they have, and sort it out. And I don't think they did. They definitely haven't. But that was meaningful as well, that they had like their own separate little go at the council. I liked that. But that took a year. In the meantime, I'm ringing solicitors. I probably rung about 10. 6 of them outright said no. 3 of them said they'd get back to me and they never did, and 1 accepted me. I'm going to explain why I kept getting rejected in my next part, what you need to do differently to what I did. The solicitor agreed to take it on. By the time I got the stage 2 report, I was broken. It had been a year of chasing information, social services harassing me, social services deliberately delaying things because they want you to give up. They want you to have a mental breakdown. I'm going to say it. They deliberately delay it. I mean, even when I requested my foster care files, they said my mum had to sign a form because there was information about my mum in the files. My mum signed it, gave it back to them the next day. 8 weeks later, I still hadn't heard anything. I chased social services and they were like, oh, you didn't give it back to us. So I resent them the email showing that I had, and they were like, oh yeah, so you did. They didn't even say sorry. I was broken. And social services, so they said to me after the stage 2 thing, they said, what do you want? What do you want from us? And I said, I want an apology and I want money. I was in debt. When I say debt, I mean 10 grand. I said before about how when you're in care, you're entitled to free council tax. And to get this free council tax, you have to fill out a form. Well, I didn't know I had to fill out a form. So I never paid council tax for 4 years that I was living in my flat. I never paid it. And then suddenly got a letter like, you owe us 8 grand. I was in debt from my daughter's nursery as well. I was in 10 grand debt. I was just thinking, I want my apology. I want you to say sorry. And I want money to pay off this debt that I blame you for getting me in. And they refused at first. They were like, we're not going to give you money, but we'll say sorry. So that's when I said to the solicitor, yeah, let's definitely sue them. And now I've got to direct you to part 3. I'm sorry, it's a really long video. I'm sorry, I can't help it. This is going to have so many parts, I'm sorry. I'm just a girl trying to help. Part 3 of how I sued social services. Watch part 1 and part 2 for more context. Share the videos, it might help others. So social services refused to give me money. So I went back to the ombudsman and I said, no, I want money. Because their apology as well was more like, sorry that we took so long to deal with this. And I didn't like that apology. It wasn't a real apology. So the solicitor wrote a letter to social services and said, hand over her files. I mentioned in my last part that I was broken from all of this. When I say broken, I haven't gone much in depth about that because I don't want to depress anyone. But by the end of this process, I didn't want to be here anymore. I was on antidepressants, I was on propranolol, I was having daily panic attacks. I stopped leaving the house, I became agoraphobic. Couldn't even walk up the street to the supermarket without having a panic attack. And to this day, it's still affected me. To this day, I get triggered so easily now. And I do blame that situation. Not even the situation, social services, for putting me in that situation. And my solicitor said, I'm going to get your files off them. I'm going to write to them. You do know this could take years. And I was like, what? I don't know what I was expecting. Of course, I knew it wasn't going to happen overnight, but years. And she said, yeah, it could take 2 to 3 years. I've got to go through these files. We've got to take it to court. We have to do all this. I remember just one day, I was at my sister's house and I was sitting in her garden. I'd spent 2 hours crying because I'd had 4 panic attacks by 10 a.m. And I just remember thinking how much money would be worth me feeling like this for another 2 or 3 years. And I remember thinking even 10 million pounds would not be worth it. And I could do with 10 million. I think we all could. And I didn't think for 1 second that I would even get 10 million. But that's when it hit me. 10 million wouldn't even be worth feeling like this for another 2 or 3 years. I won't make it another 2 or 3 years. I won't be here anymore. So I settled. I said I wanted 10,000. They gave me 2,500. Now don't get me wrong, it was £2,500 I didn't have. It's also a lot of trauma that I have. A lot of bad memories that I turn into jokes, but they were still horrible. It doesn't matter that I can laugh about it now. It is pure luck that and I'm gonna give myself credit here, and not in an arrogant way, but no qualifications, constantly moving house. Like, I'm very lucky I've ended up where I am, and I'm very proud of myself. And I took that 2.5 grand. Every now and then I think I wish I hadn't. Sometimes I sit here and think, I wish I'd stuck it out. I wish I'd stuck it out. I could have taken it to court, could have got a bit more money. But then I remember I wouldn't have been able to stick it out. It wouldn't have happened. That is my short version of why I did it, how I did it. In my next video, in part 4, I'm going to tell you how I want you to attempt to do it. And full disclosure, I'm not a legal expert. I'm just a girl who attempted to do it herself. I'm a girl that wasn't strong enough to see it the whole way through, but I'm still proud that I started in the first place. I got my apology. They had to give me a proper apology. They wrote it down in a letter. I still have it. might frame it. But I'm going to explain in a shorter version. I promise you the next video is going to be shorter. It won't be 3 parts. But now you've heard how I did it, have a better understanding of the background. I won't have to explain as in depth, and I will explain what I think you should do that I should have done, but I didn't know what to do and I didn't have the hindsight like I do now. This was 5 years ago. I was 23 years old. I definitely wasn't strong enough for it back then. But like I said, I'm not a legal expert. So yeah, buckle up for part 4. It will be out today. Just keep checking my page and I'll explain, if you really want to do it, what I think you should do instead. Make sure to share this to potentially help others. Part 4 of how I sued social services. I'm begging you, if you haven't seen the other 3 parts, please watch them, otherwise this video will make no sense. So I've explained how I sued them, now I want to tell you what I think you should do differently. I'm not a legal expert. I'm just giving you advice on tips on how to do it. If you're not successful, if you don't manage to get a solicitor, if you don't get an apology, if you don't get any money from social services, please don't be mad at me. I don't know your situation. Times have changed, circumstances are different, but this is what you can attempt to do. The very first thing I want you to do, which I didn't do, the first thing I want you to do right now is apply for your foster care files if you haven't already. To apply for your records, you contact your local authority, contact your social worker or your personal advisor and ask for them. They will tell you how to do it if you need to fill out a form. Sometimes they might ask you for ID even though they know who you are. If you don't have a social worker or a PA because you left care a while ago, just contact your local authority that you were looked after under. It's called a subject access request. They might ask you questions like, what dates do you want? What specific information do you want? Just tell them all of it. Every single foster care file they have on you, you want it. Say you want it all. From the very first record to the last record, you want it all. That's the first thing I want you to do. I didn't do that and I should have done that. Because part of the reason why solicitors rejected my case was because to them, I was just a girl saying, well, social services did this and social services did that. But I had no proof. If I'd had my records, if I'd been able to say to a solicitor, this is what I'm complaining about, and I have written documents that prove it, I think a lot more solicitors would have accepted me. However long they tell you it will take, add about 4 months. Seriously, you will not get those files from when they say they'll give them to you. Going forward, you need to know social services will delay everything as much as they can in the hopes that it stresses you out enough that you give up. And if you want to give up, that's fine. Your mental health comes first, but hang in there if you can. So I want you to apply for your records. After you've applied for your records, make a stage 1 complaint. Any solicitor that you contact, one of the first questions they'll ask is if you went through the complaints procedure. They need you to complain first because to be honest, you complaining might just be enough for social services to want to settle with you and not go down the solicitor route. I don't know why social services thought they could try me. To make that stage 1 complaint, if you're not happy with their response, ask for a stage 2. If they don't give you a stage 2 because they're saying that they dealt with it in stage 1, then you complain to the local government ombudsman, because that's what happened with me. I made the stage 1, I asked for a stage 2, they said no, we don't need to do a stage 2, we've dealt with it. I complained to the LGO. LGO told them, no, you do a stage 2. So see what stage 1 is saying. Ask for a stage 2. If they say yes, just do it. Just go through, make your stage 2. If they don't, LGO, Local Government Ombudsman. The stage 2 is run by independent investigators. I explained that in one of my other videos. They will contact you by phone, by email. They will ask you in-depth questions that social services don't even bother to ask you, and they will ask what you want. Do you want an apology? Do you want money? They are not allowed to tell social services what they have to do. They can advise them. They can't actually say, you need to give blah, blah, blah money as compensation. And they didn't do that with me. I'm assuming if you're unhappy with the stage 2, you can go through the stage 3 route. I never personally went through that because I was really happy with the stage 2 complaint. So I don't know the process of a stage 3 complaint, but it should be pretty similar to the other processes. I think stage 3 just goes to people much higher up. Once the stage 2 investigation is done, once you have your foster care records, that's when I want you to call a solicitor. Even citizens' advice will suffice. Because citizens' advice, they can put you in touch with someone for free legal advice. Or you can ring solicitors yourself. It's important. Please go through, please have your files before you do it. Please have the stage 2 results, because I know it's annoying and it's long. It will be months from when you make these complaints, from when you ask for your records. It's going to be months and there's nothing you can do about that, and it's a horrible reality, but it is what it is. You have to accept that. I hated accepting it, but you have to. You just need to be able to say to a solicitor that what you're complaining about is true and you have proof. They want proof, and I would have been much, if I'd had my files. I didn't get my files until after I took the money off social services, and maybe if I'd had my files before, I would have fought more with my mental health, because my files, like, I knew the neglect in my head, but I didn't know how much they tried to cover up or how much they lied until I got my files. But because I've taken money off social services, I can't sue them again. I can't go to a solicitor and say, oh, well, I want to sue them because I took money off social services. That was the settlement. Don't make the same mistake as me. Solicitors, you know, hopefully you can get legal aid or a no-win, no-fee basis. The solicitor that I had was a no-win, no-fee. Before anyone asks me what solicitor it is, I just had a local one from my area, and that's why I'm not going to say who it was. You can find one near you, and to be honest, you don't even need a solicitor who lives locally. You could get one, you know, you live in Croydon, you could get one who's based in central London. If you have any questions, ask in the comments, because I've sort of rushed through this video because I'm aware I've just put up so many parts today. But I'm happy to answer any questions. That is the only advice I can give because that is the process I got up to. I don't know what actually happens once you have a solicitor who is fully working on it and ready to go to court. I didn't go down that route. Like I said, sometimes I regret it. Sometimes I don't, because I don't think I'd be here if it went to court. It would have taken too long. It would have destroyed me. It already started to destroy me. And I'm going to say it one last time. This is just tips and advice. Speaking about my own experience, what I would have done differently. I'm really sorry if it doesn't work for you. What did help was having that proof. The proof that I was homeless because of social services. The proof that they let me live with a 20-year-old man when I was 15. The proof that my foster carers were terrible. They had that proof. And I'm really hoping if you went through a bad experience that the proof is in your files. You know, or maybe you want to sue because of not your own foster care experience, but because they got involved with your child. I'm not sure. Please share to make this video worth making. I want as many people as possible to see the video. Yes, because I want to help, but also I want to make it worth it that I just feel really vulnerable at the moment. It was the hardest time in my life, but I got through it. And don't feel bad if you end up quitting. If it starts to destroy your mental health, don't feel bad about it. Know that they're doing it deliberately and it's not your fault. It's not because you're weak. They're trying to destroy you. And I promise you, as someone who is obsessed with money, getting that apology from them, getting that letter where they had to admit they was in the wrong, that satisfied me way more than any amount of money could. I promise you it's way more meaningful. So even if you can't get a solicitor, even if you can't sue them, see if you can get that apology. But yeah, good luck. And again, share the video.